Welcome to this meeting of Babergh District Council Cabinet. I am Councillor John Ward, leader of Babergh District Council. May I remind you of some domestic arrangements. Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use. Please do not interrupt other speakers. If you are attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Please remember to use the chat function only to indicate that you wish to speak and not to post comments or questions. Please note that messages in the chat panel can be viewed by people watching the live broadcast. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you are also consenting to being recorded by the council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. The council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. I will now ask the Governance Officer to carry out the introductions.
Thank you, Chair. In addition to the Cabinet members, we also have Councillor McCraw joining us today, and Chief Executive Arthur Shavonia, Strategic Director Kathy Nixon, and Monitoring Officer Emily Yule. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now move to the agenda, please? So firstly, we've got item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have no apologies.
Thank you. Item 2, to receive declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest by members. Are there any to declare? No. Item 3, paper BCA 2010, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of the Baybach Cabinet held on the 9th of November 2020, and you'll find these on pages 7 to 12 of your report. So what I'll do is I'll just go through these page by page. So page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, and page 11. That's it, actually, those in the page 12. So does anyone have any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? If not, may I have a proposer, please?
I'll propose.
Thank you, Councillor Marvisi.
Thank you.
May I have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second, Mr. Chairman. It's Councillor Jen Osborne.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, that's that. So may we have the electronic vote for the minutes, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, could you please open the vote in the modern.gov app by clicking the plus sign in the top right of the agenda and selecting attendance and voting. In the voting tab, the vote for this agenda item will show in blue. Please click on the blue line to open the vote. Just waiting for one vote, Chair.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you, councillors. That's unanimous, Chair. 8 votes for.
Thank you, Claire. Right, next item, item 4, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Item 5, questions by councillors.
None received, Chair.
And item 6, matters referred by the Overview and Scrutiny or Joint Audit and Standards Committees.
There were none, Chair.
Thank you. Item 7, the forthcoming decisions list. If you've all had a chance, I hope to look at the latest version of the forthcoming decisions list. Does anyone have any comments on it? No? Okay then. I think we can continue on to the next item. Item 8, which is paper BCA 2011, the General Fund Financial Monitoring 2020 to 2021, quarter 2. I'm pleased to present report BCA 2011 to Cabinet, the General Fund Q2 Financial Monitoring for this year, covering the revenue and capital financial performance for the period April to September 2020. This is our second look at how we think our General Fund is shaping up for the full year compared with the budget, and it incorporates the up-to-date impact of COVID-19 on the Council's finances. We continue to monitor and update the impact of the unplanned costs and loss of income due to COVID-19 and the government financial support we have and are receiving. The government has recently announced that there will yet again be a one-year comprehensive spending review settlement. We're still awaiting a review of business rates, and the next revaluation will now take place on 1st of April 2023, based on April 2021 property values to ensure that the effects of COVID are taken into account. Looking at the impact of COVID-19, the financial impact of COVID-19, the additional costs, income reduction, impact on council tax and business rates, offset by the financial support we have received to date, is presented in section 5 of the report. We have additional unplanned costs of just under £1 million and a reduction in income from our sales, fees and charges of about £1.2 million. The collection fund deficit is expected to be around £200,000. Before I go on, please note that some of the numbers in paragraphs 1.2 and 5.11 are incorrect, but the tables at paragraphs 5.8 and 6.8 are correct. The table in paragraph 5.8 lists all the COVID government funding that we have received to date, and this is currently a total of £1.869 million. The table in paragraph 6.8 includes £1.822 million of this, with the remaining £47,000 having been transferred to the HRA, as explained in Melissa's monthly COVID financial updates. As described in paragraph 5.9, we now know that the government will cover 75% of irrecoverable sales, fees and charges losses above 5% of planned income. Also, the collection fund deficit can be spread over the next 3 years. The government has provided us with a lot of support, and as a result of this, together with our usual careful management, we have been able to protect the council's finances from what could have been a devastating situation. However, there remains a significant risk that this could change as the year progresses. There is still so much uncertainty about the further impact of COVID, although the progress with vaccine development and rollout gives us all hope for optimism. In the meantime, we're still having to cope with that uncertainty, particularly around the collection fund and ongoing support for our leisure centres. We don't yet know when or how they will open, or whether Abbeycroft will be successful in bidding into the £100 million set aside for compensating third-party providers. Finally, recruitment has now commenced, and so the vacancy management factor saving is unlikely to continue at such a high level. I'm pleased to report that the revenue account position for the council remains positive and has improved since Q1. Whilst the total financial impact of COVID-19 is currently £2.331 million, as mentioned earlier, we have anticipated a total of £1.822 million in financial support by the year end, including an estimate for irrecoverable sales, fees and charges income, which is 78% of our costs and losses, leaving a predicted COVID impact of £510,000. After taking into account positive variances as listed in the table at paragraph 6.8, we are anticipating a surplus of £728,000 for the year. Whilst this is good news, we shouldn't get carried away by it, as it will undoubtedly change over the remaining months. The key variances compared with budget are set out in paragraph 6.6. Some notable items other than the COVID losses are as follows. We're now forecasting a positive variance of £164,000 for SIFCO, compared with an adverse variance of £103,000 at Q1. We're forecasting an adverse variance of £70,000 due to loss of income from our other commercial properties, and this is an improvement over the £175,000 for adverse variance forecast at Q1. Loss of car park income is expected to result in an adverse variance of £110,000, and there is an adverse variance of £248,000 due to a reduction in income from the waste services. Both of these are slightly worse than Q1. There is an adverse variance of £228,000 for planning, comprised of a loss of income of £278,000, offset by savings of £53,000 for other items. And this is a very small improvement on the Q1 position. We are predicting a reduction of £82,000 in income from our other investments. There is an expected £450,000 favourable variance for our 5% vacancy management factor, which is a reduction from the £592,000 reported at Q1 as recruitment slowly picks up. An adverse variance of £356,000 is expected for business rates, which is an improvement on £389,000 at Q1, although there is a marked increase in the adverse variance of baseline business rates, which is offset partly by an increase in the Section 31 grants that we will receive, but mostly by an improved situation with the business rates pool since Q1. The impact on the collection fund is now estimated at £206,000. In addition to the government funding, we are also including £456,000 of other funding and support. That is, housing benefit income to cover homelessness costs, track and trace funding, community grant underspend, and the shared revenue partnership absorbing some additional costs. We received £870,000 of SIL income in the first 6 months of this year, which is down from £1 million for the same period last year. Apart from the 5% admin charge, this will be transferred to the earmarked reserve. Paragraph 6.11 of the report summarises the current predicted movements in the transformation fund, with a forecast balance of £875,000 at the end of the year. At this stage, we're not showing a transfer of any of the budget surplus to this, as it is likely, along with other reserve movements, to change. The transformation fund details are provided in Appendix B. Appendix A shows how we are spending 100% business rates retention pilot funding. £748,000 is still unspent, of which £280,000 is as yet unallocated. Appendix C sets out our general fund earmarked reserves, including forecast transfers. These have increased slightly since Q1 and are now just under £5.4 million, excluding SIL. Looking at the medium term, we know that new homes bonus is being phased out. For 2020 to 21, it will be £1.05 million, but it is forecast to be only £205,000 by 2022 to 23. The medium-term position presented in paragraphs 5.14 to 5.16 remains as before, an increasing deficit from £1.1 million to £2.3 million over the 3 years to 2023 to 24, with £1.4 million impacting in the next year. The comprehensive budget challenge commenced in August 2020 is now well advanced now, and the Cabinet, together with officers, are identifying significant savings as well as reviewing all, and I stress all, of our fees and charges. Use of reserves will be a last resort, as it doesn't represent a sustainable strategy. As we now know, the impact of COVID-19 is likely to be felt for many years to come. Finally, our General Fund Capital Programme is detailed in Appendix D and paragraphs 6.15 to 6.17. COVID-19 has resulted in a number of delays and increased costs. Excluding SIFCO, we have a £20.1 million revised capital expenditure programme this year, with an anticipated spend of £3.5 million. We're now carrying forward £12.7 million, leaving an underspend this year of just under £4 million, mostly due to the cancellation of the Bellevue Hotel project. The main variances relating to the carried forwards and underspends are listed in paragraph 6.17 and Appendix D. I would like to thank our finance team for all their hard work, not just tracking the progress against budget in a rapidly changing situation, but they have also had to prepare the regular COVID returns to government, and for the past couple of months or so, they've been working on next year's budget. So thanks to all of them. Before opening up for questions and debate, I'd first like to move the recommendation in section 3 of the report, that the Council's financial position at the end of Q2 be noted. May I have a seconder for this recommendation, please?
Happy to second that, John.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Davis. Right. Okay. So, firstly, questions from Cabinet members. Councillor Arthey, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Busby, do you have any questions?
No, thanks, not at this point.
Councillor Davis, do you have questions?
No, thank you. No.
Councillor Holt, do you have any questions? And Councillor Malvisi, do you have any questions?
Not at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, not at this point. I do not. Thank you.
Okay. And finally, Councillor Parker, do you have any questions?
Well, actually, I do, Chair, if I might.
Okay.
Just one, if that's okay. I'm looking at page 30, Appendix C, with regards to the General Fund earmark reserves. I'm just inquiring about the commuted maintenance reserve. There's quite a large transfer there, 376k. Could you give me some info on that?
Yes, there's actually significant. Thanks for asking that. Luckily, I've done my research. There's a significant increase from quarter one, which is an additional 294,000, I believe, from quarter one. And that's one-off commuted sums payment from Persimmon Homes for the St Bartholomew's development in Sudbury. Okay. Right. Okay. So, are there any other questions from any other members present? If so, would you please show hands? Okay. Well, then we will move into debate. If there are no other questions from anyone, any other cabinet members want to come up with a quick question on the report itself? If not, we will go straight into debate. Councillor Arthey, first off for you, do you have anything you wish to say about the budget?
No, thank you, Chairman. I mean, basically, we're looking at how can I put this, a statement of fact, if you like. No, I support the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Busby.
Well, I think it's a statement of fact at this point. The fact is that the facts will change over the next few months. So, but it's looking good. It's a lot better than it was. And I'm pleased to see that, but no other points, thanks.
Yeah, you're right. It's a lot better, and as I stressed in my report, that's a combination of two things. The government has been good, but our team has been even better in coping with the increased costs and the reduction in income. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I just want to reaffirm that point. I think the team have done amazing. When we last looked at the budget, it wasn't looking particularly good. I mean, it's still not 100% great, and we don't know what's going forward. But the work that's been done to put us on an even keel, with the support of the government, I guess, to an extent, but more so because of the way we've had to work, and the officers done an excellent job to make sure things are good. But going forward, we still need to do an awful lot more in terms of making money and trying to find a way forward in terms of the budget. So good overall, but I think we've still got some troubled waters ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Holt.
Yeah, I'd like to concur with that, really. I think it's obviously been a very difficult year, and it's nice to see an improving picture being put in front of us today. And we have got some more months to go, so it may well improve a bit more. But we're facing some very difficult decisions, and we still do face some difficult decisions. But with this improving picture, I think overall it's very encouraging.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Malvisi.
I agree with my fellow councillors to date. Considering when we last looked at it, it was not a pretty picture. It is somewhat improved, and dare I say, I'm quietly, cautiously optimistic. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's a good report and well set up. And as has been alluded to by several other members of the Cabinet, a big thank you to the officers for putting the report together and indeed for putting the budget together. We are where we are, and we have got a few more months to go, and I know that these are going to be challenging months, but I just hope that the budget improves by the time we come to improving it at full council for the 21-22 budget. We obviously have some challenges and we have some really difficult decisions to make, and I can't underestimate that. It's not easy for councillors to make those decisions, but make them we will have to. But no, it's looking good. And again, many thanks to the officers for their hard work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair, and I just concur with everything that that my colleagues have said. I mean, hopefully there'll be a few less sleepless nights in there finally, compared to what we were looking at earlier in the year. So, under the circumstances, very well done. But of course, as all of my cabinet colleagues have said, it's a very guarded and cautious welcome to this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. If there are no further comments, I'll ask Councillor McCraw. You did have an opportunity in the questions.
Well, there wasn't a question.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I didn't think it was appropriate.
All right.
All I was going to say was that from a scrutiny and I might add an audit point of view, that the evidence base that would be presented seems very clear. The report's well constructed, and the conclusions that the Cabinet seem to be coming to, I think, would be supported, or certainly there's enough evidence to support them in a scrutiny or an audit meeting. That's all. They will obviously eventually filter through to us when we consider the final budget. Thank you very much. And
Okay.
Again, I just concur to the idea that officers have done an amazing job, and we've seen that in both audit and in scrutiny.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Right. Well, I'll now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, if you go back into your Modern Gov app and select the plus sign at the top, the vote for this item is now in blue. Thank you. That's 8 votes for, Chair. That's unanimous.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Right. Now, moving on to item 9, which is paper BCA 2012, the Housing Revenue Account Financial Monitoring for 2020 to 2021, quarter 2. I'm pleased now to introduce report BCA 2012 to Cabinet, the Housing Revenue Account quarter 2 financial monitoring for this year. The report covers the HRA revenue budget and the HRA capital programme for the period April to September 2020. This is our second look at how we think our HRA is looking for the full year compared with the budget, and as with the General Fund, it incorporates the up-to-date impact of COVID-19 on the Council's finances. COVID-19 is having a financial impact on the Council's HRA. Rent levels are at a risk. Repairs and maintenance was reduced to emergency repairs for existing tenants only, and there was the need to complete void work in order to support the accommodation of the homeless and rough sleepers. The new build programme also had to stop during lockdown. New build and repairs and maintenance have now restarted, but they now carry additional costs in order to proceed safely. Service levels will take time to recover, and there will be a backlog of work. As the year progresses, this financial impact will be forecast with more certainty, but the current impact assessment is presented in section 5 of the report. The additional costs due to COVID are mainly the need for PPE, amounting to £47,000, and which has been transferred from the government supports grants money. So far, we have seen a minimal impact on rent levels, but a rental loss provision of £882,000 has been included as in quarter 1. Rents are expected to be reclaimed eventually rather than written off, but this will extend beyond the current financial year. As there is currently no HRA support from government, we will cover this from our very healthy strategic priorities reserve. The revenue position is detailed in paragraphs 6.3 to 6.11. And as always, the financial position of the HRA should be viewed in the context of the updated 30-year business plan. The budget set in February showed a forecast surplus position for 2020 to 21 of £334,000. At quarter 1, we were forecasting a deficit of £17,000, but the position now is a forecast surplus of £1.7 million, which represents a favourable variance of £1.366 million against budget. The table in paragraph 6.3 lists the main items in the budget, and a detailed breakdown of the variances is provided in paragraph 6.6 to 6.10. There is a forecast income shortfall of £790,000, comprised of, as I've said earlier, adverse variance in income from dwelling rents, and this is based on a 15% reduction for 26 weeks and is after taking into account those tenants receiving housing benefit or universal credit. This is offset by small favourable variances for service charges and non-dwelling rents, and a one-off receipt of an easement relating to land in Sudbury. Offsetting this are expenditure underspends elsewhere within the HRA. There's a favourable variance of £114,000 for housing management, which is slightly down on the Q1 figure of £175,000. A favourable variance of £214,000 for responsive repairs and maintenance, which is an increase on the Q1 figure of £146,000. There's a favourable variance of £159,000 for planned maintenance, which is a decrease on the Q1 figure of £182,000. There is a favourable variance of £1.669 million for the revenue contribution to capital, and this is forecast because of slippage in the 2020 to 21 capital programme. It is this that has been the primary contributor to the overall surplus this time, as it hadn't yet included in the Q1 numbers. All this means that our HRA balances are forecast to be £15.655 million, as detailed in paragraph 611. COVID has had a huge impact on our capital programme this year, and the normally difficult task of accurately assessing the level of payments for complex capital schemes has become almost impossible. The capital programme is itemised in Appendix A, and further detail provided in paragraphs 612 to 615 of the report. Actual capital expenditure for April to September totals £2.4 million against a budget of £28.8 million. Although they have restarted, projects have fallen behind schedule and their budgets will be carried forward to meet expenditure incurred next year. We are expecting the full year capital spend to be £18.279 million, with £10.161 million being carried forward. And again, before opening up for questions and debate, I'd first like to move the recommendation in section 3 of the report that the Council's financial position at the end of Q2 be noted. May I have a seconder for this recommendation, please?
I'd like to second that, Mr. Chairman, please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Councillor Oswald. Yeah, thank you. Okay then, again, I'll run through questions from Cabinet members. Councillor Arthey, do you have any questions?
I have got one small one, paragraph 6.8, the responsive repairs and maintenance. And it's, I think, the last bullet point on that page, which is the offset of £33,000 for covering vacant posts. I just wondered if we could have a bit more detail on that.
6.8.
6.8, and it's the last bullet point. It's the offset of £33,000 for covering vacant posts.
Right. Okay. I don't personally have the answer to that. Melissa, do you have an answer for that one? Or Catherine?
Hi, Chair. Thank you. No, I don't have the details to hand, but I'm happy to go away and get that and give you a written answer for that one, if that's okay.
Thank you. Yes, so it's relating to agency and consultancy costs.
Yeah, I'll get the details on that and share that with the Cabinet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Do you have any other questions, Councillor Arthey?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Busby.
Thanks, Chair. 4.4, we talk about the council's housing stock at 3,418 homes.
Yep.
No doubt we've bought some and we've sold some. Could somebody tell me whether that's going up or going down?
Well, I don't have the precise numbers to hand here, but based on evidence recently of right to buy sales versus our builds and acquisitions, the number is most definitely going up. As an example, 2019 to 2020, our right to buy sales were 11, and we acquired significantly more than that. Councillor Oswald, do you have the actual numbers?
I don't have the actual numbers because obviously the last I got is September, and it's changed even since September because they change on a monthly basis. There are a lot of sites coming forward, so even if the figure hasn't increased since quarter one, by the time we get into Q3 and quarter four, there will be a significant increase. I think it's important to remember as well that we will be approving, once the budget's been approved next year, we'll be improving the new HRA business case, which will set out where we propose to go with our development programme. But I haven't actually got the figures to date, but if Councillor Busby wishes, I can provide that to him. I've got plenty of emails tucked away somewhere that I can forward to him with the exact figures.
Actually, I've just found some numbers which were accurate as in the summer for 2020, that is current year. Well, for last year, 2019 to 2020, well, I said that we'd sold 11th right to buy. We'd built 10 and bought 18. So that's a net gain of 17. For 2020 to 21 as current year, as of the July, we'd bought 45. There were 33 under contract, 63 under offer, which included the Waldingfield Road. And we commenced construction, obviously, in Angel Court and Hadley, which was 21, a site in Shotley for 8, and a site in Brantham for 9. So you can see that there's been significant activity despite COVID and the restrictions that's imposed this year.
Okay, thanks. It's good to see that the figure's going up, and I congratulate you on your dexterity in finding those numbers.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
No congratulations and no questions.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Holt.
Yeah, just a couple of things. On the building services, the responsive repairs, are we now back up and repairing those as they come in, or are we still prioritising those? It's just I have had recently a few contacts with residents who have been waiting some considerable time for what may be classed as non-urgent, but obviously to them they are still important repairs. And secondly, on the building services one, where we've got a favourable variance of 159k, the planned maintenance, do we anticipate being able in the next 12 months to get ahead of the planned maintenance schedule, in that we'll be able to carry out what has been now backlog maintenance and get on top of it?
Gavin, are you able to answer any of those?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Cabinet. If I could just come back to an earlier question in relation to the costs of building services. Members will be familiar that we have had an interim manager in the service since December last year. Chris Pegg leaves us next week following the successful appointment of Keith Turner to corporate manager. So you will understand that as a result of having an interim manager, there were additional costs incurred. We've also had some additional staff from agencies covering long-term sickness and obviously trying to invest in the service and make the inroads that I know members want to see in terms of both the quality and the delivery of those services. We've had some agency staff supporting us at certain times, but I would expect that to resolve itself in the forthcoming weeks and months. Just in relation to the points raised by Councillor Holt, yes, we are back as much as we can be to business as usual. I think it's really positive that Babergh and Mid Suffolk District Councils were able to maintain a level of repairs throughout the initial lockdown, and then subsequently we are adhering to government guidance, and that requires us to have safe systems of work in place. Naturally, as a result of some of those things, you can expect that performance might dip in terms of, for example, using PPE and the amount of jobs that can be done per day. But we are at the moment still providing some form of triage through the team to ensure that our resources are prioritised to those in greatest need, and obviously to the repairs. I'm happy outside of the meeting to receive any feedback about specifics, because obviously there may be a narrative around those. Obviously we've had some level of displacement as a result of materials, but actually within the service we are doing everything we can to limit the impact of shortages of material supply, both as a result of COVID and any challenges that we face in the forthcoming weeks. So we are trying to mitigate wherever possible.
Thank you, Gavin. Thanks.
Sorry, John.
Yeah, Councillor Hart, yeah.
Gavin, the planned maintenance, will you be able to get back on track within the next 12 months, or is that going to be a delay that's going to be carried forward?
I'm so sorry that I failed to answer that question. Totally forgot. So in terms of the planned maintenance schedule, yes, I would expect us to play a level of catch up. So, for example, if it was a particular contract for a certain type of works, the next contract that we will let with more multiple properties in that contract. But I think what is really positive, and there was local media coverage this week, for example, the nearly £1 million that we are investing in Minden and Cavendish Way through planned maintenance improvements that will make that whole area much better for those tenants and leaseholders that live there. So we've also got external wall insulation programs going on in Springlands at the moment, and parts of Cornard, again, looking at improvements that we can make. So yes, we will inevitably try and catch up wherever possible. Some of the work that we are doing in response to the budget challenge and developing the budget for next year is, for example, looking at our spend. So where we've relied on contractors to provide certain works, for example, fencing, our intentions are to reduce contractor spend and employ our own operatives to carry out certain work. So, for example, in fencing, we will have a gang of fencers improving, hopefully, the quality and the delivery of those types of repairs. But more so, we're also looking at apprenticeships and additional carpenters and plumbers as well.
Thank you, Gavin. Very reassuring, that. Thank you.
Thanks, Gavin. Councillor Malvisi, you're next.
I've got nothing to add or to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne, as Cabinet Member for Housing, have you got any questions?
No, I'm more than happy with the report. I certainly haven't got any questions. I will have something to say during the debate, if that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thought you would. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Parker.
No, Chair, no further questions. Thank you.
Right. Are there any other questions from any other members present? In that case, we'll move over to the debate, and I'll now open the item up for debate. So, Councillor Arthey, do you wish to say anything in the debate?
Well, it's a follow-up to the questions, really, and it's about our council housing stock and what's happening to the totals. Because as far as I can make out, and I've just looked it up, in November 2016, our stock was 3,505, and it now appears to be, what was it, 3,416 or something. So we're actually not back up to 2006 levels yet, are we?
2006 levels? No, well, there has been, 2006, there have been 16.
2016.
Right. Okay. I'll have to get back to you on that because I don't have numbers in front of me going back that far, to be honest. So, Gavin, can you comment on that?
I'll just let you know I got it from the business plan, which was published in 2017.
I apologise, I can't give you an answer. I'm happy to go away and look at the numbers. When we produce stock reports, we inevitably will produce them with different types of stock, for example, social rent, affordable rent, sheltered. But I'll go away and look at the totals. What I can do is reassure members, without providing you with the actual numbers, that obviously since 2012 and self-financing and the ability for Babergh District Council to start to invest in developing its own housing stock, that we have seen ultimately a net improvement in the overall numbers. That inevitably has coincided with what was significant numbers of right to buys up till the crash in 2008, then an increase in the intervening years, but since 2014 actually a further decline in right to buy. So inevitably the more properties we can build and the less right to buys we have, it will improve the overall bottom line. But I'll go away and provide all members with some numbers going back over the last 10 years.
Thanks, Gavin. Thank you. Councillor Busby, do you have anything you wish to say at this stage?
Well, I'm just disappointed in your dexterity not going back to 2016. It's, please try and do better.
Okay, will do. Councillor Davis.
No, I'm all good, thank you.
Councillor Holt.
No, all good, thank you.
Councillor Malvisi.
No, nothing, thank you.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, if I can just go back to what Councillor Arthey was saying, I find that really strange. So I should be looking back at all these figures to check that out, because we in 2016 we set a target to develop 214 new properties to add to our housing stock. And as at September, we were halfway there. So I find that figure really strange. So I'll be interested to get the up-to-date data from officers to see where that is. The actual report itself is looking really good. And again, I think to Gavin and his team, the housing team, and to the finance team, really well done for putting this report together. And it is looking good. However, again, we cannot underestimate the challenges that we've got in the next few months and way beyond that as far as the housing team are concerned. So it's well done to everybody. What I would say, Mr. Chairman, is please, could we show in the HRA budget a ring-fenced amount for mobile CCTV cameras? Hopefully we're going to approve today at Cabinet CCT funding for Sudbury and Hadley for new cameras, which is great. But it won't account for the use of mobile cameras throughout our district. And as we know, the social housing white paper was recently published, and it's got 7 key promises, and one of those is emphasis on restricting and reducing antisocial behaviour. And by having mobile cameras, it was proven to work really well in Minden and Cavendish in Sudbury recently. And I would very much hope that we could ring fence some amount in the HRA so that we can provide mobile cameras in the future where we've got particular antisocial hotspots coming forward, especially on our own developments. But otherwise, excellent report. Thank you to both teams, for that, the housing team and the finance team. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. No further comment. Thank you.
Right. Well, then I'll now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the electronic vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, again, if you could go to the plus sign in the ModGov app and select attendance and voting, the vote will now be in progress. Thank you, Chair. That is 8 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thanks, Claire. OK, we're moving on now to item 10, which is paper BCA 2013 Q2 performance presentation. I'll now ask the Cabinet Member for Customers, Digital Transformation and Improvement to provide an introduction.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. And as this is just for reporting, obviously we're not taking a vote on this. It is just for reporting. So I'm going to ask immediately for our Assistant Director for Customers, Sarah Wilcock, to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker, and good afternoon, councillors. I'd like to present Baybach District Council's Q2 performance, which commences on page 41 of your papers. This is the second iteration of our new and refreshed style format, designed to provide a flavour and overview of how the council has been performing for the most part from July through to September, a snapshot in time illustrated through some performance indicators and objectives which link directly back to our corporate plan. The presentation is themed based on our 6 key priorities within the corporate plan: communities, housing, wellbeing, customers, environment and economy. And we also include a theme titled Health of the Organisation, which reflects work undertaken to provide the foundations for an effective and an efficient organisation. Without running through the entirety of the content of the presentation, I would like just to pick out a few key points though. Undoubtedly, throughout the summer months, there has been a continued focus on our response to the coronavirus pandemic, with activities highlighted in the presentation, including proactive contact with high-risk businesses to ensure appropriate risk assessment and working practices were in place, distribution of over £24 million of grants to our businesses, and continued support provided to our amazing community groups and individuals. Additionally, progress was made against corporate plan objectives, including drafting and approval of our biodiversity action plan, commencement of our NVQ training programme to develop in-house skills for staff to review and redesign processes from a customer perspective, recruitment of 5 apprentices and commencement of works in Shotley, Brantham and progress at Angel Court, delivering affordable homes for the district. As mentioned, this is only the 2nd iteration of our new style performance presentation, and we have in this edition also included a link to a digital case study, which we hope will be the first of many, being able to share engaging content with you in a format that is much more accessible. We will obviously continue to refine the style and take account of feedback, and further improvements will continue in line with further quarters. So thank you for your time to present this, and I'll hand back to Chair for comments and noting.
Right, got there in the end. Thank you, Sarah. That's very informative. Thank you. So, questions from Cabinet members. Councillor Arthey, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Councillor Busby.
If it's not confidential, could we have an update on the progress on the Phillips site?
I'm not. Is there anything Councillor Parker or anyone can answer on that one? All I know is that Arthur, can you provide an update?
I will not necessarily provide an update, other than simply to say, obviously, we continue to work closely to see how that site can be brought forward. The ownership changed during the course of the year, and our dialogue is hopefully with those new owners, and clearly our approach as a council in terms of what we want to see there hasn't altered. But yeah, outside the meeting, we can provide you with a wider update if that's helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Councillor Holt.
I'm fine. Dave, say Phillips, as in Glamsford Phillips.
Yeah, I think I assume that's what he's referring to. Do you want to make any comment?
Well, I'm happy to pick up with Dave after the meeting. I'm not sure there's anything confidential as such, but obviously the site has been sold.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to have a conversation with Dave to sort of brief him as to where we are with it. But the site is sold. New owners are looking to put in a planned application, and that's where we are generally. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Public knowledge. So
yeah. Thanks. Councillor Malvisi.
I drove past it this morning, and the only thing I have to say is that the Phillips Avent badging has been removed, and I think it's OGB is the new badging that's gone up.
Yep. Okay, thanks. Do you have any other questions on this paper?
Nope.
Councillor Osborne.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Parker, I'll ask you if you've got anything further you want to comment on this paper.
No, Chair. Just really just to back up what Sarah said. Obviously, our second iteration and the all of the stats and information that backs up the report is all still available for Cabinet members and indeed for any member that wants to see it.
Thank you. Thanks. Right. Any other members present? Any questions from you? Councillor McCraw, do you have any questions?
None, Chair.
Thank you. Right. If there are no further questions on this, then I'll just say that the item is noted. And thank you, Sarah. That's very helpful. Thank you. Moving on then, item 11, paper BCA 2014, the ICT strategy. And I'll now ask the Cabinet Member for Customers, Digital Transformation and Improvement to introduce this report. Councillor Parker.
Super job. Thank you very much, Chair. And members will be aware that we only recently discussed this at Council in the past few weeks. So hopefully it'll still be fresh in members' minds. And with that in mind, I'll try and keep my introduction brief. But the first thing to say about the ICT strategy is that it is all about customers rather than or less about the tech that sits behind it. The IT element is, if you like, the conduit for us to be able to deliver first-class customer outcomes. Our IT, as we know, is run in conjunction with Suffolk County Council, and the strategy helps us to unlock the value in that existing partnership. So what is the strategy? I can break it down into three strands, and shortly I'll invite Matt to talk, but break it down into three strands. So the outcome of the strategy is about customers, residents, and ensuring that we're able to deliver better outcomes for everybody. It's focused on unblocking value in the partnership with Suffolk County Council and indeed our existing software suite. And it's about the building blocks of the strategy that are informed by people, process and data. Just a few words about how the strategy has come about, because it's it's a whole new thing for us, new journey. And so some time ago and in the previous administration, it was recognised that there needed to be a change in provision of our ICT. Sarah Wilcock, who you just heard from, our Assistant Director for Customers and Digital, led some work to bring recommendations forward. And as a result of those recommendations, we restructured ICT to bring the team who look after our business applications back into the council, which enabled them to be closer and to respond better to the needs of the council. So with the addition of Matt Harding, our IT corporate manager, we've worked on strengthening that relationship with Suffolk County to enable us to realise the potential, but moreover to extract the value from that relationship. And it's those steps that have provided the foundations upon which we build the strategy. So that's the introduction, Chair. I'm glad to present the recommendation. I'll be looking for a seconder as well, Chair, and I'll ask Matt to answer any questions that we might have as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd be happy to second this for you. So, questions from Cabinet members. Councillor Arthey, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chairman. Councillor
Busby?
No, thanks.
Councillor Davis?
No, thank you.
Sorry, I just lost my screen here. Councillor Holt?
No, I'm fine, John, thank you.
Councillor Malvisi?
None, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Osborne?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Okay, Lee, I assume you don't have. I've just got one question actually, and that's the reference to the low-code tool sets. Have tool sets been selected yet, or are we just going with the sort of the standard Microsoft offering? And to what extent are those going to be only used by IT support staff, or whether specific users in various service areas will be trained in the use of low-code tools so that they can produce their own apps in a flexible and agile manner?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take that. And good afternoon, Cabinet. The answer is A little bit of both. So yes, we already have Microsoft tools in terms of the low-code stuff that they do on the Power Automate platform, and we are starting to use those within IT whilst we develop the guardrails that will enable others to use them safely. So that's one thing. We also have a digital champions approach that we hope to bring forward that will, to all intents and purposes, bolster the IT capacity by enabling the wider organisation to undertake their own automations. Secondly, we are looking at potentially new tool sets, specifically in the digital transformation and end-to-end digitisation of process space, that may also include additional low-code tools.
Thank you. Thanks. Sarah, did you want to come in on that?
No, it's fine. Thank you, Chair. Matt was able to jump in there. I couldn't get my video and audio on quick enough.
That's fine. That's brilliant. Thanks very much. Thank you. Right then, Councillor McCraw, do you have any questions?
None, Chair.
Well, I'll now move on into debate and open this item up for any further debate if anyone has any comments they wish to make. Councillor Arthey, do you have any comments?
No, thank you.
Councillor Busby.
Well, it probably won't come as any surprise, but I didn't quite understand what Matthew was saying there. What are low-code tools?
They are, well, they're sort of the latest incarnation of what's been available for some years in terms of graphical development tools to allow people to build applications effectively through clicking and selecting components pre-built modules rather than coding from scratch using and requiring a detailed knowledge of a particular programming language. They've got more sophisticated over time.
Thank you.
Matt, did you want to add anything to that?
Just, Chair, that was really well summed up. I would suggest that the simplest way of thinking about it is Lego for developing software.
Yeah. A career in IT helps. Right, Councillor Davis.
Yeah, just very briefly, I think it's great that you techies love talking about your ICT and your stuff and your Lego and your tools and all the rest of it. But Lee, I think nailed it on the head right from the beginning. This is about the residents. This is about making it easier for all the people that use our systems. And I think it's great that we're moving forward at this. And I think it's also excellent that so many residents have come on board. Yes, there's still obviously a few who struggle with technology, and we need to cater for those. But more and more every year, more and more people, that percentage drops. And I think this sort of strategy helps that. And great. Well done to everybody on that.
Thank you. Councillor Holt.
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, are we forecasting or planning on new hardware? Because obviously the new way that we've been sort of forced into working since COVID has, I mean, I've got a tablet and really it isn't the most suitable tool to have for what we are now doing and the way we are carrying out our work. Yes, I have a second screen, but if we are going to continue, and I think we probably will continue to hold a lot of meetings like this, are we sure that we have our hardware is up to scratch? It has the power that it needs to cope with new systems that we're introducing, and should we and are we looking at a new hardware contract where we are going to start replacing, or is that just a natural progression? How much has COVID affected our planning for hardware? Because I have to say all the software stuff goes over my head. And it is good to see people converting to digital, but as Derek alluded to as well, we mustn't forget that that those residents that aren't able to use it and aren't able to cope with it. So yeah, it was just a hardware point, really.
Okay, thanks. Matt, do you have an answer for Councillor Holt, please?
I do, yes. The answer is it depends on the need. So in terms of the IT and the hardware, form will follow function. If there is a need and it is not suitable, we will look to alternative hardware solutions. The the key thing to state is that actually the majority of the performance that people may be suffering from with regards access to tool sets like Teams that we're using tends to be down to local broadband. And obviously, as you're aware, we are in partnership with Suffolk County Council around a Better Broadband for Suffolk project as well to try and increase that across the districts.
Thanks, Matt. Councillor Malvisi.
I've always worked in a direct customer interfacing role. So I really do care about customers. And we have to talk the language that they talk and not the language that the techies talk. And I've got 2 techies in my family. And that's my concern, because we have a high percentage of the population is over 65, and they will talk like me, a bit techie, but not wholly techie, and they will need people to talk their language, not us expect them to talk our language. And that concerns me. Thank you.
Can I answer that? If that's all right, because I think that's an entirely valid comment, Councillor Malvisi, and if I can offer you any sort of reassurance or comfort, in Matt, and I don't want to cause any embarrassment to Matt here, but in Matt we have somebody actually that is multilingual insofar as he can talk techie with Councillor Ward till the cows come home, but I've been immensely impressed by the way that Matt is able to translate that into everyday language and everyday speak, and what is so crucial about this whole strategy, Councillor Malvisi, is and thank you, Councillor Davis, for mentioning it. This is only about delivery to customers. And so by definition, it has to be in plain speak and plain English. So exactly as we say, the IT is only the conduit to provide first-class customer services, and I'm certainly determined. Sarah will know that since I took on the portfolio, I've banged on remorselessly about culture and change and putting the client at the heart of everything we've done, and I think we've made massive strides towards doing that as well. And if I can give some comfort to Councillor Holt as well, you know, by utilising and harnessing and teaching people, holding people's hands through this progress or process of engaging with the technology, it's actually going to free us up time, Councillor Holt, to deal with the most vulnerable and the people that really can't or for whatever reason haven't got access to this technology. So the point is, we've now got a strategy. We've never had a strategy before, and so we've got a direction and we've got a vehicle to which in which we can deliver first-class customer services. So I hope that gives members some comfort. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parker. Councillor Osborne.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I don't have any questions. I would like to make the point that I'm certainly not a techie, but I found it very easy to read, so I'm thankful for that. So to me, it's a good piece of work. So thank you.
Thanks. Right. Well, I think that's gone through everyone for debate. I don't know, Councillor Parker, did you want to sum up before we move to the vote, or?
Well, I think I just inadvertently did, actually, Chair. Yeah, so I'm happy if you want to move straight to the vote, yeah. Chair.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Well, okay, I'll now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the electronic vote for this item.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, members, if you could go into your Modern Gov app, and the vote should now be showing in blue.
How do you scroll down?
Councillor, if you hover your cursor over the right hand side and then click the click button at the same time, the The scroll bar should show.
Oh, I found it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's 8 votes for, Chair. That's unanimous.
Thank you, Claire. Right, moving on to the next item, which is item 12, paper BCA 2015, the Community Infrastructure Levy SIL Expenditure Programme, December 2020. And I'll now invite the Cabinet Member for Planning to introduce the report. Councillor Arthey.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the SIL Expenditure Programme contains an update on progress on decisions in bid rounds 1 to 6. So that's since we started doing SIL and awarding from bids. Also included is a list of emerging projects for future consideration, which are currently developing. That's Appendix A. Paper BC 2015 has 4 bids recommended to you today, 3 for Cabinet decision and 1 for Cabinet to note. And I'll briefly run through those ones. We'll do the ones for decision first. The first one is 2011, Sudbury and Hadley CCTV arrangements. That's from ring-fenced and strategic infrastructure funds. As you'll see from your papers, the total cost of the SIL bid there is £183,000 for the capital costs, with revenue contributions coming from Sudbury and Hadley Town Councils. The project supports the District Council's ambitions of creating safe, healthy and vibrant communities with a strong and diverse local economy. It also supports the strategic partnership aims of both of the towns and the vision delivery groups to attract inward investment, enhance their environmental credentials and give confidence to those who live, work and visit the towns. The main objective is to prevent and detect crime within the town centres of Sudbury and Hadley and to make these communities safer for residents, businesses and visitors. There are large challenges for the police and community safety partnerships in both towns. The technological advances in CCTV, particularly the deployment of mobile equipment, is a key aspect of how this form of offending can be deterred and improve the level of prosecutions. And Councillor Osborne touched on this a little bit earlier on. The project is included in the Infrastructure Delivery Plan and our Infrastructure Funding Statement, and the project is of a strategic nature, important to both the towns of Sudbury and Hadley in terms of community safety. Moving on to B2005, which is in Lavenham, the first of 2 in Lavenham. This one's the re-engineering of Prentice Street car park, including the provision of EV charging points. The project brings clear community benefits as it aims to increase provision of off-street car parking in the village through the improvement of the car park and the creation of 5 additional spaces, which will take it from 19 to 24. And it also involves the provision of a new toilet block to replace the existing provision in Prentice Street car park. 2 public electric vehicle charging points are also included in the bid. Lavenham is promoted as a tourist destination with its range of shops and hostelries and serves large hinterland of surrounding villages and hamlets. It also draws visitors from further afield, and the improved facilities will also benefit the aged and the less able of the population. The project meets climate change priorities with the provision of electric charging points, which will be publicly available. Collaborative spend is achieved in the bid by working in partnership with Lavenham Parish Council, and the amount of the SIL bid is £109,000, with Lavenham Parish Council contributing £26,261. This is in accordance with the thresholds of the SIL expenditure framework, which you're all familiar with, for community infrastructure and electric vehicle charging points. It's a district-owned car park. It's a Baybach car park, and subject to funding being achieved, all other necessary approvals of the council would be needed before works can commence on site. The next Lavenham one is B2004, which is at the 10-piece sheltered accommodation unit, and that's from Local Infrastructure Fund. A total SIL bid of £36,054 towards the total cost of works of £48,072. 10-piece is an estate developed by Baybach in the 1960s. In large part, it comprises a sheltered housing scheme for vulnerable adults. It has an elderly population, as has Lavenham as a whole, approximately 33%. As is currently organised, this common room needs to be improved as a space for vulnerable people to meet and socialise, and the project would provide a safe, homely environment for this to happen. It's an oven-ready scheme where collaborative spend is achieved in partnership with Lavenham Parish Council. The amount of the SIL bid is £36,054, representing 75% of the total cost of the work, with Lavenham Parish Council contributing £12,000. This is in accordance with the threshold of the SIL expenditure framework for community infrastructure. It's a district-owned building, and subject to funding being achieved, all other necessary approvals of the council would need to be secured before works can commence. You will note that I've said something similar about both of the Lavenham schemes. They are both in, or they are both assets owned by Babergh District Council. So just to point out to you that although they are Babergh owned and controlled assets, Lavenham Parish Council are actually contributing nearly £40,000 towards these two schemes. The projects are Lavenham initiatives, but the car park, the toilets and centrepiece are all BDC owned assets. You may be aware that there has been discussion in the past about the future of the management of the car parks, and from a management point of view, Lavenham Parish Council already manage the toilets and operate a box contribution scheme towards their maintenance. Finally, move on to the decision for Cabinet to note. That's B1918, which is in Hindlesham and Chattersham. It's a play area improvement scheme on the playing fields. It comes from the Local Infrastructure Fund with a total cost of £990, 83p. That's the total cost of the SIL bid. The total cost of the works is £39,420 and 83p. The proposal represents an enhancement and upgrade of the existing facilities. The decision to support the bid for improved play infrastructure has occurred under delegated powers for the reasons set out in the assessment. Project spend is small, comes under the £10,000 threshold at £9,920, and under the delegated decision limit, that decision can be made but has to be noted and reported to you. The spend represents 25% of the total cost of the works and is therefore within the SIL expenditure framework threshold for community infrastructure. I'm proposing the recommendations as set out in the papers. That's at paragraph 3.1, which is to make decisions as recommended for Lavenham and Sudbury, Lavenham and Sudbury and Hadley for the CCTV in the two towns, and to note the delegated decision taken at Hindlesham. And paragraph 3.2 in the recommendations is asking you to note and endorse the SIL expenditure programme dated December 2020. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Arthey. Well, we did hear you, but your picture has gone.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. All we had was an empty council chamber, and you were no longer there.
I can see that now. I don't know how that's happened. Hang on.
No, that's quite something. Okay, right. Thank you very much for that. First of all, Councillor. I thought I saw your hand up, Councillor Osborne. Was that for any particular reason?
Yes, it was, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest, please, in both the bid for the CCTV, bearing in mind I'm a Sudbury Town Councillor, and also in the tender piece, because I was involved in the initial discussions on that one. So that's a non-pecuniary on both those bids. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Right, well, Councillor Arthey has proposed this paper. May I have a seconder, please? Is that seconder? Anyone like to second? If not,
I'm
I'll
happy to second that.
Okay, Councillor Davis. Yeah, thank you. Okay, moving on to questions. Councillor Busby, do you have any questions?
No, thanks, Chair.
Councillor Davis.
No questions. No questions.
Councillor Holt.
No questions.
Councillor Malvisi.
No questions at this point, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Osborne.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Parker.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, questions from other members present. Councillor McCraw, do you have any questions?
None, Chair.
Then I'll move on to the debate and open up the item for any further debate. Councillor Busby, do you have anything you wish to say in the debate?
Well, only Clive mentioned that the ownership or management of the Lavenham car park and toilets potentially might shift towards Lavenham away from Baybach. I just wondered what the position on that is and how that would impact on this SIL bid.
Yeah, it doesn't impact on this particular bid. I suppose one of the reasons for mentioning it is that the ambition at Lavenham for a number of years has been to actually take control of the car parks and toilets in the village. They've come to an arrangement with regard to maintenance of the toilets, which they took over, albeit using the same contractor. They do a little bit of work in the car parks, just I suppose simply because there are times when they're not looking as good as they should do, but their ambition is to actually take over the full management of the car parks and toilets. Both toilets in Lavenham are within the car parks, and their ambition is to take a lease in order to properly manage those moving forward. And I think I mentioned that they did introduce an honesty box for contributions, which has helped in their costs of maintaining the toilets to a good standard. The links to this bid, I suppose, are that both sets of toilets are getting a bit tired, and they are not particularly compliant with regard to the provisions for COVID, in that they have shared space within them rather than having a cubicle with full facilities. So their intention is to replace both sets of toilets. The bid that we've got here is for Prentice Street, which is just at the back of the marketplace in Lavenham, and they have already submitted a bid for the other car park and the reorganisation, I suppose you'd call it, of the toilet facilities in Church Street. So this is, as far as car parks and toilets are concerned, this is sort of phase one of the improvement to toilets and car parks in Lavenham.
Okay, thanks very much.
Councillor Davis.
Yeah, there's a couple of points I'd like to make. First of all, I think SIL's brilliant. I absolutely love it. It's one of the best things I think this council has adopted, or you know, obviously it was a previous administration, but I think it's one of the best things we've adopted for two reasons. A, the developers know where their money's going and they can see it actually helps the communities. So that's great. And I use the CCTV example in Sudbury and Hadley. It really seriously needed updated, but where do we get the money from? Well, SIL has proved to be the perfect point. And I think the second point I'd like to make is we need to sell this story in terms of the whole SIL. so more people apply, more people use the community infrastructure levy, both from Baybach and obviously in the road neighbourhood development. And finally, I just want to again say what a fantastic job Clive and his team have done. Christine Thurlow, I know in terms of the SIL has worked wonders, and so please, Clive, pass on mine, and I'm sure the rest of the cabinet's thanks and congratulations for the amount of work they have to do to get this. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think we'd all agree with that, Councillor Davis, and certainly you're quite right that the CCTV proposal is a clear example of something that's been desperately needed and would never have happened if it wasn't for SIL. So it's proving its worth. Councillor Holt.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, John. I think that the CCTV is a great example of how this should and can be used. And for both communities in Hadley and Sudbury, it's going to give them such reassurance, and for businesses as well as residents. I'm sure when we first debated this and discussed it, mobile cameras were part of this scheme, and I hope that is still the case, as it has been mentioned previously today. So yeah, overwhelmingly support that as a fantastic thing for both market towns. Moving on to Lavenham, the infrastructure for the 2 EVs. I would like some clarification if the infrastructure that's going to be put in would actually support more than 2 in the future, because obviously with the growing electric car market, the chances are we're going to need more than 2 in the short or not too distant future. And the other point that's been raised is the sort of ownership. I'll be very cautious of handing over any of our assets at the moment. And I hope this isn't a condition of this application, because if it was, I certainly wouldn't support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Arthur, I don't know if you can just confirm that, but it's my understanding that there are no conditions yet attached to this SIL bid, because although Lavenham has signalled an interest, there's been no further progress on that in terms of transferring the assets.
No, it's kind of ongoing. I mean, I think the original intention was that that they might seek a transfer of the freehold. That now seems to have been replaced by a likely opportunity for them to have a lease. I think the thing about Lavenham is that it's not quite like ordinary shopper type car parks, and the level of use of the toilets is quite high during the summer months, and actually having somebody close by to help keep the maintenance of those up to a good standard is quite useful. So the fact that they've managed the toilets has been a real success. Regarding the car parks, they are of course contributing quite a lot of money to this project. The ambition is that they will have electric vehicle charging points in all 3 of Lavenham's car parks. There are the 2 existing car parks and the proposed one at the gas holder site at the bottom of Water Street. That will also have electric vehicle charging points. Yes, the cabling will be in, Michael, but I think that if there was to be a significant increase in the number of charging points, it would actually require a new supply, which has got its own costs associated.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Malvisi.
Thank you. I'm very supportive of the CCTV for Sudbury and Hadley, and for the cameras to be mobile. I'll have nothing else to say.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we on questions or are we in debate? I don't have any questions. Debate. Okay.
Sorry. We're in questions. Sorry, in questions.
We're in questions. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll come back then when we go into debate. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Parker.
I don't know if it's a question or not, but I mean, first of all, I'd just like to echo Councillor Davies' thoughts around SIL itself. I mean, I've been lucky enough to work on the SIL working group since inception, back in the previous administration, and I've often said that it was the single best piece of work that I've been involved with whilst being a Babergh District Council, and the improvements and the benefits to our communities are absolutely phenomenal. But in terms of a question, I suppose I'm just teasing something out of the report really, because I noticed, for example, in the Sudbury and Hadley bid, it says it represents, towards the bottom, it says, and that's on page 98, it represents an acceptable exception to the community infrastructure threshold. Now, you know, as a member of the working team, I'm fortunate enough that I understand what that means, but I'm not sure if other members do, or indeed whether members of the public that might be following it follow that as well. But I wonder if Councillor Arthur, whether you can explain that just, you know, briefly or not, for people who might not understand that.
Yeah, perhaps I should have highlighted that. I thought that my presentation was probably plenty long enough. But yeah, we introduced changes to the thresholds for bids in one of our framework reviews, which said that bids would only be for up to 75% or £75,000. We made exceptions in the framework for green infrastructure, which is why the electric vehicle charging point element of the Lavenham application is 100% funded, but the rest is not. So what this means is that we're asking, and perhaps I should have highlighted this really, because it's asking you to approve an exception in this case to allow for more than 75% of the funding of the total project to come from SIL funds. Does that explain it?
I think it makes it amply clear. Yeah, it makes it amply clear, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Okay. Questions from other members. Councillor McCraw, do you have any questions?
No questions. I do have a comment, but I can make it at any time you wish.
You can make it now.
Thank you, Chair. It's really just to say that the SIL expenditure framework on which this is based is subject, and has been subject, to a constant rolling review by overview and scrutiny since its very inception, in fact. And at every single stage, we don't always approach. It's not a matter of routine. It's something that scrutiny goes through from a differing viewpoint, because the expenditure framework has altered and changed according to circumstance and according to need. So it's really just to, obviously, I would say that these are all valid in every possible way, but that's your decision. But the actual framework on which this is based is something that is subject to constant re-examination. I mean, virtually every 6 months, it seems. I've been living with SIL for the last 4 years, 5 years, whatever, like many members. So that was all. It was just to make that point.
Thank you. Right, I'll now open this item up for debate. Councillor Busby, do you have anything you wish to say?
No, thanks.
Councillor Davis, anything else?
No, I've said enough, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Holt?
No, thank you.
Councillor Malvisi?
No, thank you.
Councillor Osborne?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, with regards to the Sudbury and Hadley CCTV, this certainly supports the council's ambitions to create a safe and healthy and vibrant communities. And it's well known that if you've got a safe town, it will encourage investment into the town. So I am very, very much up for this. Regarding the mobile cameras, I think it's key to the success of this project. I don't believe that mobile cameras are been allowed for in the actual costing within this bid. However, if that is the case, then as I've already asked to have some money ring-fenced in the HRA budget to accommodate the provision of mobile cameras throughout the area for particular antisocial hotspots. In regards to Centrepiece, I'm really pleased to see this coming forward. I was in discussions in my role as Cabinet Member for Housing. I was contacted by the Parish Council and I was involved in discussions on this. And I'm really, really pleased to see this coming forward. You know, it will be a real facility for those affected by dementia and also other vulnerable people. And I have to say a big thank you to all the people, mainly in Lavenham, that have been involved in this coming forward. Lavenham Parish Council very much lead by example. And, you know, for example, one of their things is the Community Land Trust. They're already providing homes in Lavenham. So I very much support this as well. It's a great project and I'm looking forward to seeing it come into conclusion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. Councillor Holt, you just put your hand up. Did you have anything you wanted to say on that?
Well, it's the mobile cameras. I'm pretty sure that when we had discussions at briefings, etc., that mobile cameras were going to be part of this. And it would be nice to have some clarification as to whether this bid is going to include them. It was always the case, from my point of view, that certainly one in Hadley and one in Sudbury were going to be part of any CCTV upgrade. So I'd like some clarification on that.
Councillor Arthey, do you have any comment on that?
No, I can't give you an answer on that. I do know that the system which we're being asked to fund will accommodate mobile cameras. Whether those actual cameras are included in this bid, I can't answer that. I have a feeling that maybe mobile cameras are not infrastructure because they're mobile by their nature. So the system will definitely accommodate mobile units, but whether they're included in this bid, I suspect not, but I can get that clarified for Councillor Holt.
Thank you. Thanks. Right. Finally, Councillor Parker, do you have anything else you wish to say?
No, thank you, Chairman.
OK, then. Well, thanks, everyone. I'll now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, once again, if you could go to the ModGov app, your vote should now show as blue, so you can start your votes. Thank you, councillors. Chair, that's 8 votes for, which is again unanimous.
Thank you, Claire. Sorry. Right, moving on to item 13, paper BCA 2016. This is the Abbeycroft Financial Support for 2020 to 2021. Now, this report is in 2 parts. Part 1 is the public part of the report, and part 2 is confidential, and that covers the appendices. So I'll now invite the Cabinet Member for Communities to introduce the report. Councillor Davis.
Thank you very much. As we all know, this has been a truly awful year, but we can look forward to 2021 with much optimism, and so it is with Abbeycroft Leisure with our Babergh support. Despite all the setbacks and challenges, Abbeycroft have remained steadfast throughout, taken some extremely difficult decisions in terms of staffing and operational matters, and it is a testament to its robust, responsible and responsive management that we are in a position today to be considering the paper and its recommendations. Quite simply, without the hard work, close communications and open book approach, we would be facing a quite dreadful scenario where our residents would be facing a future without the leisure provisions they deserve, desire and need. We would have gyms, but not as we know it. As I pay tribute to Warren Smythe and Tracy Loynes at Abbeycroft and all their team, and Catherine, Melissa and Cassandra here at Baybach, members should remember the dire straits we were in during the 2 lockdowns, and it is only superb financial management that has kept the vitally important leisure centre provisions at Hadley and Kingfisher Sudbury afloat. No one should doubt the importance of gyms, swimming pools, fitness classes and other offshoots these facilities bring to the physical and mental health well-being of our residents, from 6 months old to 90 plus. Yes, we can swim in the rivers or the sea if we're lucky enough to be close enough, or run and walk in the parks and open spaces, but our leisure centres offer far more in terms of motivation, variety and safety in staying fit and healthy in mind and body. This brings me into Abbeycroft's importance to Babergh as a not-for-profit management company with a skill set we would find hugely difficult to replicate, even with our outstanding staff we have at Baybach. This means the loan in the first instance, followed by the grant, is hugely important to allow Abbeycroft to continue to service at Baybach, both as a council and for our residents, through to next March, when hopefully vaccinations will have taken effect and the leisure centres will be operating as near to normal as possible. The details within the paper provide the specifics, although myself and Cassandra will be happy to take questions. Meanwhile, I commend the recommendation 3.1 to 3.3 to the Cabinet without hesitation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Did you really mean that Star Trek reference, Jim's but not as we know it?
I'm glad someone picked up on it.
Okay, thank you. May I have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. It's Councillor John Osborne.
Thanks, Councillor Osborne. Thank you. Right, questions from Cabinet members. Councillor Arthey, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have a question, but I will contribute when you open the debate. Thank you.
Okay, yep. Councillor Busby.
No, thanks.
Councillor Holt.
Just one thing, I wouldn't recommend swimming in rivers.
I used to when I was a lad.
Yeah, we do in Shotley.
Yeah.
Your rivers are clean in Shotley then, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Down at the store at Catawade.
Yeah.
Councillor Malvisi.
I'd like an answer for why the grant is greater than the loan.
I'll pass that on to Cassandra. I think I know the answer, but I want to be very clear.
Sure, thank you very much, Councillor Davies, and good afternoon, Cabinet. So to answer that question, Councillor Malvasi, the loan is based on the assets that that Abbeycroft own, and so the loan has to be secured against those assets and therefore can't total more than what the assets are worth.
Thank you. Thanks, Gus.
Yeah.
Councillor Osborne.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Parker.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. I'll join in the debate. I will just say that it's the Stour, not the Stour. But
well,
no.
I concur. Lee.
I think it depends on where in the district you live.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions from any other members? Councillor McCraw, do you have any?
None, Chair.
Right. We'll move into debate then. Councillor Arthey.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I've been on the council quite a long time now. I joined just after we built Kingfisher Leisure Centre, which was just over 30 years ago. These facilities are our facilities. They're our swimming pools and leisure facilities. And in Hadley, we've just built a completely new swimming pool. This year, COVID-19 has presented us with huge challenges, but we cannot abandon our leisure centres and just walk away from them. And as a result, we cannot leave Abbeycroft high and dry either. As Councillor Davis has said, things will return to something closer to normal, and we have to go through this period, and we have to help Abbeycroft go through this period so that we can return to a position where we have properly managed, properly funded, and good, usable, accessible facilities in Hadley and Sudbury. So I support the help that we're giving to Abbeycroft so that we can return to a position where our facilities are hopefully back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Busby.
No, thanks.
Councillor Davis, well, I presume you said everything you wanted to say in your introduction. Do you have anything else you wish to add?
Not at the moment, but if
Okay.
people, yeah, that's not at the moment.
Councillor Holt.
Yeah, I've always had concerns about the amount of money we seem to be giving Abbeycroft, and with what we've given them already, plus another 270,000 and another 150 loan, in a time when we are trying, or public money is so scarce and we're having trouble with the budget. I do have issues with how much money we're pumping in. I take Clive's comments 100% in that they are essential services, but we are giving money to an outside body with no real guarantees of those centres remaining open and operating. And the long-term future, I think we do have to look at how we manage our leisure centres so that we are in far more control and a better control of the financial aspects going forward. So yes, I struggle with the amount of money that we are looking to put into that. We say it won't come back to us as grants, with the exception of the 150,000. And when a lot of people are struggling, and a lot of businesses are struggling, and we face what we face at the moment, it is a difficult decision, I think, far more than what other members seem to think. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Malvisi.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Holt has expressed my concerns. A lot of people are going to come out of COVID having lost their jobs, at best, maybe lost their homes. They won't be able to afford gym or leisure centre membership. So I'd be looking at a reduction in income, even though a lot of people will be suffering from all sorts of illnesses and side effects of COVID. We're going to a leisure centre and exercising will be highly beneficial to them, but I still think that their revenue stream will be much reduced moving forward. And that's going to take several years for them to claw back just to get back onto an even keel of pre-COVID sales. So like Councillor Holt, it concerns me deeply because the 270 grant will just disappear down the tube if they don't survive. So they have got to make it work. There's no ifs and buts. They have got to make it work because, as Councillor Holt pointed out, we've been trying to balance the budget. We've been trying to find money from absolutely everywhere. And here we are giving a grant that some people may consider the equivalent of what we were looking for.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually also share Councillor Holt's concern, as will some members of the public, I know. But however, it's about getting the balance right. And the proposal before us today is the right balance. We all know how key having facilities to enable us to keep healthy, both physically and mentally, is really, really key. And we're going to need it as we come out of this dreadful situation. We're going to need it even more. I know I've missed the leisure centre, and many other people are missing it as well. And the sooner we can get back to using it, the better. So the balance before us today, it's the right one. And, I referred to earlier about councillors having to make some hard decisions. This obviously is a hard decision, but I'm confident that the decision we're making at this point of time is the right decision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it really is a tough decision. There's no question about it in these straitened times. But I'm just naturally, when I say naturally, I'm just more optimistic about the future for the leisure centre. It's a not-for-profit business, so I do think that it's a little I think it's a little bit unfair to say that if we had direct control of the situation, that we would be able to have made a better job than the current management have at Abbeycroft. I mean, it's just a unique set of circumstances that have arrived here. But as a not-for-profit business, what it needs is customers passing through. And if we don't have COVID, we will have customers passing through. The tills will ring and everything will balance. So I'm a lot more optimistic. I think naturally, you know, with everything that's going on this week, with the vaccines that are coming, etc., we are certainly in for still a very bumpy 12 months. So, but here's a question, Mr. Chairman. I mean, of the grant on the loan that's being proposed here, if you know, if those leisure centres stayed closed for the next however many months, how long will this amount of money last?
So can I answer that?
Yeah. Yes, Councillor.
Yeah. As it says in the paper, we're looking for the money to be used up until March, which would be the year end. It has to be said that the furlough scheme has helped Abbeycroft no end, because that's relieved a lot of the pressure. And as you've mentioned, Councillor Parker, this is a not-for-profit organisation. It's not an outside body that's making money out of Baybach. It's quite the opposite. You know, if we didn't use Abbeycroft, we would have to manage this ourselves, and we wouldn't be able to give ourselves a grant, for example. We would have to find the funding from other areas. It's hugely important. And just to reassure people, when the gyms are open, they're very well used, both in Sudbury and Hadley. We don't have the specific figures yet for coming out of lockdown. They'll come 7 days after the end of this year. But they are very well used. And if we didn't use Abbeycroft, we would have to manage this ourselves, and obviously all the resources that would take. So in terms of the actual loan and the grant, I think it's a good use of the money, unless what we're saying is we're either going to mothball both the swimming pools and the gyms, of which we've invested a huge amount of money, or we're just going to turn our backs on it altogether and not give our residents the leisure facilities they need for both the physical and mental health well-being, as I said in my introduction. We can't turn our back on it. Yes, we have to make difficult decisions, but I think this is an easy decision in many ways. I think we're very fortunate to have Abbeycroft running them for us, because they are very prudent and they work extremely closely with our teams. And also, of course, they work with other local councils as well, West Suffolk for being a prime example, and St Edmundsbury. So, yeah, I can understand certain concerns, but for me, this keeping the leisure centres afloat, literally, right up until March, that's what this money is aimed for, and then they can get back on an even keel, and we can reassess it, once things return to some sort of normality. These are our facilities; they're Babergh's. Abbeycroft run it for us, and they run it for us very, very well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Holt, did you got your hand raised? Did you want to say something or respond?
Yeah. Yes, they are an outside body, and they are a non-for-profit organisation, but we are pumping a lot of money into that non-profit organisation, just as you say, to keep our leisure centres open and operating. So it is a difficult decision based on that alone, that we are given money outside of our organisation with no real guarantees. If we had and I don't want to look back and say if this and if that, but Derek mentioned it, if we had taken control ourselves, we would have got government funding for it during this crisis. So, that's retrospect. You can't look back, you can't change that, but there would have been support available to us if we had run it ourselves. It is a bit of a gamble, because as Councillor Mulvey said, that there's no guarantee with this at all, and I take other members' comments on board that this is such an essential part of our residents' well-being, and we do own them and they are ours, but it's just the amount of money we're talking about, handing it over to an outside body, it makes it a very difficult decision. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. Councillor Arthey.
Yeah, I just wanted to support what Councillor Davis said. Notwithstanding what Councillor Holt said about some other funding that may have been available to us from the government if we were running this facility, it's been a very, very difficult year. And if we didn't have Abbeycroft managing these facilities, all of Abbeycroft's losses in the first instance would be our losses. So you can balance the what if, but as Councillor Holt said, we're not in, you can't go back. We're not in a what if situation. So I think that given what's happened this year, if we don't step in and help, I think the position is worse than any of the other what-if scenarios, because we would end up with facilities. In the case of Hadley, the pool is brand new. We would have facilities that we couldn't easily and quickly step in and manage. We would have Abbeycroft, who we would effectively be allowing to fail. And we would then have a lot of work to do to try and put something in place to get the leisure centres reopened and provide for their ongoing management. So I think that without Abbeycroft, we would have been in a worse position this year. And I think moving forward, we will be in a much worse position if we don't keep them afloat and keep them on board.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, just to add that Abbeycroft will be in the mix along with every other leisure centre in the country or leisure centre providers for government money, which is still to be finalised. So the government option is still there, but because we don't know what's going on with that or when that will come, we can't add that in at the moment. And I'm sure Cassandra or someone else can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, there's £100 million ring-fenced pot for third-party outsourced leisure providers to bid into. They have to submit bids, and I know Abbeycroft are working on a bid, and I know we're helping them, and West Suffolk's helping them. But there is uncertainty there, uncertainty over success, and if successful, uncertainty over how much will eventually come to Abbeycroft. So there's a lot of unknown around that at the moment, so we're having to make decisions here based on an assumption that's not part of the mix. That's not part of our considerations. But if it is, then it will be very helpful and would probably reduce the need for the full £270,000 grant. But that's not something that I think we can consider here at this stage. Councillor Busby.
Yeah, I think you kind of mentioned the point that Abbeycroft manage leisure centres in other districts, and we really need to coordinate the approach on that. I think if we just bailed out, that would put a lot of pressure on the other districts as well.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, Abbeycroft have proven up until COVID to be a sound provider of leisure services. That they manage the centres very well. They manage their finances very well. That they're hit, as indeed most other businesses have been hit by an unprecedented event this year, and they're responding in a professional and sensible way. They're looking at how they can restructure their finances to see them through this, and part of that is assistance from ourselves and from West Suffolk. And I think that they've certainly satisfied us that they've got a sound plan in place for seeing through the rest of this crisis and hopefully to full reopening and full resumption of services. The thing we have to remember is that leisure provision is, although not a statutory service, it is an essential service. So many people rely on it, and it's key to the whole of our well-being strategy going forward. the numbers of people that use both Sudbury and Hadley are very significant, and so the impact on a huge percentage of our community would be massive should these leisure centres not open. And when looking at all the alternatives to providing them with this loan and grant combination, all of the alternatives would be far more financially difficult for us to sustain. That it is the most cost-effective option to do this, to support Abbeycroft and to keep them going, and to have faith and confidence in their ability to recover and to provide a good leisure service going forward. Councillor Arthey.
I'm so sorry, that's a legacy hand.
Okay then. Right. Well, if there are no further comments or questions, I don't think, does anyone wish to move into the into the private session to look at the details of the financial aspect in the confidential paper? If not, I'd be happy to conduct the vote. But does anyone want to look at or to discuss or question the confidential papers in any way at this stage? No. In which case, I'll ask the Governance Officer to conduct the electronic vote, please.
Thank you, Chair.
So just one thing, can I have clarification? Are we just voting on BC 2016, just the paper we've seen, or are we voting on the confidential one as well? Are we taking them both together? Are they one of the same?
Taking them both, yes, yeah.
Okay.
We'd only move into the confidential session should we wish to talk about that confidential paper, unless.
Chair, can I just confirm that all of the recommendations were in the public paper? So
exactly,
the confidential part of the report was just the appendices. There's no recommendations contained in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, members. So the vote has now started. So if you go to your ModGov app, you'll be able to vote. Thank you, Chair. That's 7 votes for and 1 against, so that is carried.
Great. Thanks, Claire. Right, everyone. Well, thank you very much for that. That draws today's Cabinet meeting to a close, and the next meeting will be Thursday, the 7th of January at 5:30 p.m. So thank you, everyone, and see you at the next Cabinet meeting. Well, see you before, but formally at the next Cabinet meeting next year. And it's going to be a better year next year.